Hi folks, thanks for joining this session. We'll be talking about optimizing levels of customer service. This is a whiteboard session where we'll be going through a couple of common situations that organizations find themselves in and looking at how technology and how different Microsoft plays can help you optimize those levels of customer service, either through looking at the agent experience, the customer experience, or looking at technology all up. So I hope you enjoyed these next sort of 20 to 30 minutes. Any questions or queries, please ping us directly and inquire through our website. So we'll jump straight in. So initially what we need to understand is the concept of customer service, how it comes together and some of the moving parts that come into it. If we define what customer service is, what we're looking at is usually an organization is going to provide assistance and advice to a customer, to another organization, and will have some mechanism of being able to handle things like requests and ultimately be able to provide information back to their client base. So if we actually break this down in terms of different actors that fall into this story, if we start off with our customers, so if we think about our customers, those are the ones where they're going to submit tickets, cases, issues, concerns. They're going to get in contact in some way, and they will send that through to an organization. And once that goes through to an organization, an agent will pick up whatever that ticket may be. So if we draw our agents into here as well. And what you may find is with a customer, they could be submitting, maybe they've got a complaint that they need some help resolving. Maybe they want to return an item. Maybe they want to make a claim against an insurance policy. Maybe they are again asking for more information about a product or service. Then what we have is with that agent may be working with multiple organizations, multiple customers. So what you end up having is multiple customers listed on the side here, and we'll call this one customer A and we'll call this one customer N. And again, they will be sending through multiple requests through to an agent. And building on top of this logic, what you'll likely have is also multiple agents handling these tickets. And you'll find that maybe customers can overlap between agents. So you can see here it starts to get a little messy in terms of how things are tracked. And then once those agents are handling those tickets, what they may do occasionally is reach out to a supervisor. And that supervisor could be a point of escalation. So they may be handling if something's gone wrong, they need to escalate to a supervisor. It could be a case of maybe the agent doesn't have enough experience, so they need a more senior individual involved to help resolve an issue. Or potentially maybe an agent is unresponsive in the sense that they may have gone on leave, they may be away from their desk, there's no one available to answer a call. So again, a supervisor may drop in to answer any questions. Adding to that, to add a little more complexity, what you might find is a customer may contact one agent. That agent may not be best suited to pick up a call or answer an incoming message, and as a result, they'll get rediverted to another agent. So they may be diverted to one another, again back to the supervisor, and then off to other agents. So you can see here we have multiple points of data which are coming in from our customer base, and we can see that here. We've got multiple agents handling these tickets, which we can see here, and a supervisor, potentially multiple supervisors handling those incoming requests. So I appreciate the number of lines on here might be a little bit confusing. So what we'll do, we'll take a step back and we'll map out a real world process based on client experiences that we've dealt with ourselves. So within this instance, we are looking at an insurance company. And think about a generic insurance company where maybe they have, they create policies, individuals sign onto a policy, they may make claims against that policy for whatever reason. So that could be car insurance, pet insurance, home insurance, whatever that may be. That's the example we're looking at here. So if we think of this in the first instance, put yourselves in the seat of a policyholder. So you have an individual, and this is going to be our customer. And that customer may have a policy with an organization. They might not, they might be inquiring about that. But either way, they're going to get in contact with that organization in one way. In this example, our customer gets involved with an organization, via email. They may also choose to phone up the organisation. And on occasion, they might even look at the organisation's Facebook page, let's say, and they want to have a question answered pretty quickly. When the customer submits information, when they email through, that will typically go through to a shared mailbox. And within that shared mailbox, there may be multiple folders. They may have some level of categorization, and within there they can quickly chop and change where those customers sit, how they answer those queries, and also ultimately determine which agent needs to pick up that incoming email. In most cases, what you'll find is that email is handled by a team of individuals who will pick up the request. We'll call this person an email assistant. And they will then choose what department that goes to. So that could be claims, it could be something different. So they'll manage where that email goes to. You then have a phone. When we look at our phone system, what we'll probably find is that a call comes in, and it will follow maybe a number of different questions, and depending on what questions are answered, what options they choose to select, that will go through to maybe potentially an agent directly. It may go through to an individual who may choose the right team. But generally speaking, that first port of call is determining where does this need to go. And in this instance, let's say they phoned up around asking for a refund. The agent may initially think, that will go through to our claims department. And then what may happen is the claims department says, well, actually, no, that's not the case. That needs to go to our refunds department. And so then may choose to redirect the call to that individual. And then when we look at Facebook, what we'll tend to find here, and let's just we'll draw an F here. What we tend to find is that may go through to a Facebook page, let's say. That may go through to their marketing function. And then from there, marketing may say, well, actually, we have got no idea where that needs to go to necessarily. Let's pass it through to our agent. And our agent may then choose to determine, well, that may need to go through to our refunds team or potentially our claims team. In terms of how a lot of this information is captured, so once it goes through to an agent, and we can draw that down on the left down here. Once they have an incoming ticket, we'll just call it incoming ticket. So again, that could be a phone call, email, messenger, whatever that may be. What we've seen with some organizations is they will take that information and they will put it into a spreadsheet. And within that spreadsheet, they will manage their ticket information. So in the example of a claim, if we were looking at car insurance, that could be a case of identifying the location where an incident occurred. It could be identifying the cars, how many people were involved, was everyone wearing a seatbelt, any other notable information to submit during that claim. And again, if you had maybe a different request where maybe they're looking for a refund, that may go into a completely separate spreadsheet, and that spreadsheet would maybe be talking around how much does the claim need to, or how much does the refund need to be for? Do we have their account details on file? Is there any additional information we need to go through? Do we need to get, is there a finance element that goes into this? And once we have all that information, what you then tend to find is reports need to be generated on the number of tickets. So with those tickets, they're all consolidated in some way, and a report is created. And the report that's created can be sent off in maybe a PDF. Maybe it's something like a Word document where the number of tickets is tracked over a period of time. You're looking at success rate, first time fixes, maybe you're looking at handling times, whatever that may be. With a Word document, you may take some screenshots from that visualization or from that report, and then add some commentary. And maybe in some cases you're using Power BI as well, where you're dynamically pulling that data through. With all of that, what you'll find is you may have multiple versions of these reports. You may find that there's different audiences. In some instances, you're relying on a team to develop those. It takes substantial time to bring into place. Now, if we look at some of the challenges that we have here, first one being is with our customer experience, and we'll talk around the self-service experience in a moment. But in terms of our customer experience, they can communicate with us in many different ways. And as soon as that hits our system, we've instantly got 3 silos of data. So the challenges that we find is actually there's no correlation maybe between an email and a phone call that customer has made. So let's say they've emailed in previously and now they're phoning up. Wouldn't it be great if you can identify that actually they've contacted us before with these specific issues, and therefore we might be able to answer their query faster. Adding to that further, with some instances, maybe where you've got your email assistant or an agent trying to pass through a call, you end up with a position where someone phones up, they might have a very quick query, but actually it's not picked up until maybe a week later. In the case of an email, or maybe they're stuck in a queue of 200, 300 people and they're spending hours waiting on the phone to actually get passed through to someone. Again, with something like Facebook, oftentimes a lot of the social channels aren't monitored. So a message may come through and it's not until maybe some form a marketing department goes onto that site until it's actually picked up. And by that point, it could be weeks, it could be months later. And even then, it then needs to go through to an agent to identify what team that needs to go through, and ultimately it'll get through to the right team. So with all of this, you end up in a situation where for the customer, the experience is pretty shocking, because whenever they phone up, the agents and the organisation they have a policy with have no idea who they are, what they're trying to get to, and any history. We've also got a terrible experience in terms of our channel management. So we've got all this different information logged all over the place. There's no complete view of that client or their communication with us. And then also there's additional information across these channels that we can make use of in other areas of business, and we'll touch on that in a moment. Also, when we look at our agent experience, it's awful as well, because when you pass through, let's say from an agent to your claims department here, usually there's information lost in translation or transition. So with your agent, they may get an initial request. They might just pass it straight through to claims. But during this conversation, they may have told them exactly what the problem is. And now the customer needs to repeat that again to the claims department. And if the claims department isn't the right person for it, and they've transferred it to refunds, the customer needs to explain the same thing again. And what you tend to find, you get this common situation where it'll go from the agent through to claims. Claims don't know what to do with it. That'll then go through to refunds. Refunds doesn't know what to do with it, so they pass it back to the agent. And because the agent is sometimes different, because you have a pool of agents answering the call, you end up in this constant cycle where ultimately the customer says, you know what, I'm not interested, I'm leaving, and they'll go to a different organisation to get their policy because of the customer service experience. Pushing on from there further, we look at the data which we're processing. Storing things in Excel, there's a time and a place for it. Managing, potentially hundreds of tickets is not that time or place. We have challenges with this where we can have drifting schemas, where there's extra bits of data which are added in, some bits are redundant, some bits are forgotten. And likewise, in this instance, we have multiple data silos. So we've got an Excel version here. As soon as we need to create a report, we're spending 2 weeks trying to join those things together. Whereas actually it would make a lot more sense if we had a single source of the truth that we could create reports from automatically. Even if you do it manually using PDF and Word, you've got a single version. It makes that report building process a lot easier. And if you want to do it automatically, we're using things like Power BI. Again, a single source of the truth makes life a lot easier. So where do we go from here? So the first bit I want to talk about is modernising the self-service experience. So one of the things that we can look at here is, rather than dealing with all these disconnected systems, we can take some of these things out. So if I just erase these elements, and what we can do is add in the customer record again. So if we start off with our customer, it shouldn't matter really how the client or how the customer wants to interact with us. We should be able to provide enough channels for them so that regardless of which channel they interact with, they can answer their query. Now, in the first instance, we had emails, phone calls, and Facebook messages where they are looking to reach out to an individual who can answer a query for them. The first thing we can start looking at doing is identifying what those channels are. So again, we might have, I'm going to draw these slightly differently. We may have email, we may have phone. I'll put social media in this instance. I'll also add in SMS in case that's something they're interested in, and any other channel they may want to use. Again, as new products and services are released, there may be better ways of communicating with an organization. WhatsApp is another common example. So what we can do here, we can take all those points and we use some way to funnel them into one system. So if we take this through, we'll funnel it through, and that way what we can do is, rather than worrying about having 3 different people trying to pick up what these items are, if we can have a mechanism at this point where we can process that information and ultimately decide where we need to go to, that's going to be basically a great win when it comes to optimizing that service. Adding to that, if we can provide any sort of automated response, and the reason I'm putting boxes in here for now is on purpose, because we may put some products in here in a moment, we may get to a point where we say, right, can we automate this? Or actually, do we have a manual query? So maybe there's something that can't be answered directly but by maybe a boss or something along those lines. We can actually go through to an individual who might be able to pick that up. So now if we start taking this a little bit further, so get rid of these agents on the side, and we'll start putting some information in these boxes. So in terms of an auto response, one of the things that we can do is actually look at, initially, when a request comes in, is understanding where does that request need to go? What is the customer actually asking for? So when we start looking at products and services, typically what we find is an organization or an individual will contact an organization. They've got a load of disparate systems. There's a product we can use here called Dynamics Omnichannel. And what Omnichannel allows us to do is we can process multiple channels, which is what this is. This is essentially, all of these are the different channels in which we're consuming information. And with that, we can pass all that information into one system. And what we end up having is a single version of the truth from the off, where we can start taking data from Omnichannel, storing it in one big table, and at that point we have a consistent view of the information that we're capturing. So if that's an email, we can attach that email to a record. So in this instance, we can call that cases. So we can attach an email to the record. If it's a phone call, as it comes through, maybe an agent picks that up, and that ultimately logs that phone call against a case automatically. Social media, any information that comes through, we can automatically log that through into a case. SMS, same again. And if we've got things like WhatsApp or whatever else, we can pass that through. Now the question that comes up is, right, well, it's all good that you're pulling in this information, but actually when we start processing this in Omnichannel, you just end up in a situation where you've got one person who's going to pass it on to someone else. Omnichannel gets around this through a couple of ways. The first method is we can look at skills or skills-based routing. So if, let's say, someone starts talking on the phone and we have something along the lines of maybe a chat bot that's actually in the call itself. We can ask it initial questions around what you're looking to do. They may hear the keyword refund. Through skills-based routing, we can identify, right, we need the refund skill, which will be associated to an agent. And what we end up having is we have an agent that's within that refund department who we can then match up to the case. And as they're answering the call, that's all dynamically linked with Omnichannel. And with cases, we're making use of Dynamics customer service. So as they're on the phone call, the call is recorded, the transcript is logged against the case, the email is logged in there as well, and any other communication. Adding to that, because we are coming through this method, we maybe identified who the customer is, we can attach that to the case record. And what that means is let's say the customer comes in with an email initially, so we pass that through into Omnichannel, and they have a case that's come off the back of it, and later on they text him. Because we already have a single version of the truth, this agent can now identify, right, they've had a case previously, it was an email, we can look at that conversation, we can look at what the output is, and there's a text that has come through. Even if it's a different person who's picking up that ticket, they can now go back and identify that actually they've raised another case previously, and now they can see that, oh, they sent a text message through. So now we're looking at, right, is that text message linked to that previous refund? Maybe it's not gone through, maybe they've confirmed it's just gone through. And that way, with things like case creation rules, duplicate detection, and so on, we can make sure that our data stays clean. The agent has a better understanding of that customer, and for the customer, they haven't had to wait in long queues to get their answers resolved. It's answered quickly and easily through the system. The other thing that I touched on was this idea around bots. And with bots, we use a product called Power Virtual Agents. I'm just going to put PVA in here for now. And what Power Virtual Agent can do is, let's say they email through, rather than having a human agent respond, if they're asking things about, let's say, a claim, the bots can pick that up as a topic and then go back with some key information. So maybe they're asking a question around, I'd like to make a claim, how do I do that? The bot can pick that up, respond, and therefore you've never had to get a person involved. We can just get that information back out to the customer instantly. And again, that prevents them having to wait in queues and so on. What that also does, and this is when we start talking about modernising the agent experience, is now that agent has a lot more time to deal with incoming cases where actually a human is required to resolve it. So it's something which is maybe a little more complex. Again, with the bot, we can hook into multiple different channels. And again, we can pass that information back to them. So if we need to link that into social media, we can now link them into phones as well. So there's new voice capability with Omnichannel, where as the user phones up, it can go through to a bot, and they can go through and get their queries answered pretty quickly. Again, there's new capabilities as well, where you can expand this further by using OpenAI modules in Azure, by using that model to look at a knowledge base. So if you want to provide specific links or provide a link to documentation, that's all something that you could look at doing using those bots. So what we've covered there is we've got this idea around collaborating between colleagues. So where we're looking at our refunds element here, no matter who picks up that ticket. And again, just to extend on this further, let's say you need to transfer that to another user, and in this case we'll go with our claims department, because that user has access to the same cases and the same history. Everything is intrinsically linked. So again, you don't have to spend hours trying to explain the same thing over and over again as a customer. The agents will actually have that information. The other thing that we can have access to as well is, let's say you resolve a case. Case is resolved, or maybe there are specific processes which we look at using. Within things like Dynamics, you have this concept of a knowledge base. So again, if you're in this situation where you find that your agents are constantly going out to a supervisor for help, that knowledge base may actually handle a lot of those queries automatically. So if someone needs to process a claim and they haven't done it before, that knowledge base will provide that guidance. Adding to this as well, where the supervisor comes in, supervisors can still have visibility of a workload. And when you're looking at things like omnichannel and customer service, there are tools out of the box where you can start tracking your team and looking at their performance. So if you do want to have that level of visibility, you've got that with that supervisor role. Adding to that, if you need to transfer to a supervisor, that's all available out of the box as well. Okay. Now I appreciate I don't want to go too far over the 30-minute mark. So some of the other bits and pieces we bring into this quickly, we can look at creating web portals. So again, that's another method of our channels. So we can embed different applications, chatbots, and so on into a web portal. And again, that provides that single one-stop shop. Adding to that, we can even link our knowledge base in with a web portal and maybe even with our chatbots. So again, a customer can go to a portal, ask a question, get a response quickly and easily. And only when they can't resolve that, we can then pass it through our case system, which again, because it's optimized, we've got skill-based routing, we've got the right people in the right place at the right time. You end up decreasing the call backlog. Some of the numbers that Microsoft provides are that decreasing the call backlog by 80%, decreasing the average agent handling time by 73%, reducing the number of agents required by 50%, and then because of the knowledge base, and improving the first call resolution by 12%. And with elements of automation where we can automate who it's assigned to, automate responses. Maybe there are other activities at this stage where they interact with other systems. We can use automation to increase productivity again by 20%. Adding on to this a little further, so there are other products that fall into this, and we haven't really touched on reporting much. So an issue with this idea of having multiple sources, because we now are making use of this single case location, we can automate reporting using Power BI. So we can quickly draw that in. And because with Power BI, we only have to build reports once, what we end up having is a report that automatically refreshes. That doesn't require weeks and weeks and weeks to provide data. And if you do need to provide some additional information on it, rather than having to wrangle your data together, you've got everything in one place. And again, that information you can pass back into the Power BI report. So if you've got commentary that you need to add on a week-by-week basis, at least you've got that in there as well. Now we can expand this further, and one of the things that I don't want to do too much of is put so much information on the page it gets a little bit unmanageable. But one of the things we can build on top of this, if we think of this as our customer services model, and if I quickly just resize all of this for a moment, and just pull that to a side. If we think of this as our customer services model, we've got incoming information, we're looking at processing refunds, we've got agents managed, we have other products that can sit on the top of this. So one of the other products we can look at using is customer insights. And what customer insights allows us to do is we can start looking at real-time customer profiles. So based on a customer who's interacting with our service, we can very quickly understand not only what tickets have they had in the past, but also if they're using any of our other services, any of the products. We have a good idea as to what that looks like. One of the examples that we might have as providing services is looking at what entitlements they may have. Do they have enough hours on a contract? How are they purchasing other services? Do they have any ongoing in-flight projects? We may want to make use of marketing. So because of the customer information that we're getting, maybe they're asking questions around products and services that we offer. So by using the different channels, we understand what channels are most effective for reaching our audience. And also if they're asking common questions about certain topics, we can use that for targeted advertising. So if we need to start understanding, right, this individual is interested in purchasing or interested in this type of software, maybe that's something we want to push. or maybe they keep inquiring around pet insurance. Maybe we can provide them an offer around pet insurance for their animal. Other items we can look at using, if we look at field service, so with this product, what we can start doing is hooking it into a customer service element where maybe you have your telecoms company and your customer phones you up and says, my internet's down. Initially, you might be able to resolve that by patching an update through, checking things in the area, turning the router off and on again. But in other cases, you actually need to send people out into the field. What field service allows you to do is schedule those technicians to go out, give them the equipment that they need. This can start looking at improving that first time fix. And because they'd have visibility of the cases and tickets that have gone through the system, they're not going in there blind. They know exactly what's going on. They know exactly the history that sits behind this, and therefore more likely to resolve that issue. And by resolving that issue, if they identify a new type of problem, they can create a knowledge article, which again can go back into the service and allow those agents to quickly resolve that, maybe next time without that technician having to go out into the field. And finally, and certainly not least, is sales. So with this, we can start looking at the type of tickets that an individual is raising. Maybe they have a policy out with a vehicle and they're looking at doing service plans. And those service plans you pay for a certain period of time, or maybe they've got a warranty that's 3 years. With sales, what you can start looking at doing is understanding, right, this is going to expire, or their service plan is going to expire in a certain period of time, or they need an extended warranty. By looking at their tickets, you might understand that, okay, they're coming in for a car service next week. That may be a great opportunity to ask them if they want to extend that policy to maybe cover a different vehicle or additional vehicles. Maybe it's looking at increasing the warranty, or maybe they want to buy a brand new vehicle. So with the different products within the Dynamics suite, they can all touch onto this customer service experience. And what you end up with is a situation where not only are you answering your queries quickly and easily using technology, that things are a lot slicker, your customers are more engaged, they feel that they're more valued. With the other components that sit around this, you can leverage that further. And again, all of these, they're optional. You don't need them to kick things off, but they are definitely things which you can build on in a modular basis. Adding to that, what you tend to find is organizations will want to integrate other things into this system. So behind all of this, we use a database called Dataverse. And what Dataverse allows us to do is we can integrate with other systems. So maybe you've got a third-party tool. For example, HubSpot is quite common. For leads, MailChimp is quite common. For when we start looking at email marketing, maybe you're looking at IoT devices where you're tracking assets. I appreciate that's gone a bit off the screen there. But essentially what we can start doing is bringing in multiple different connectors and start hooking those onto Dataverse as well. So again, giving that 360 to the client and what they're looking to achieve. So with that, what we now have, we have this level of omnichannel engagement where we're starting to look at different ways individuals can chat with us. We can build elements of self-service by using our bots or Power Pages. We have this idea around unified routing, where we can identify what skills we need to resolve a case and who needs to resolve it and how quickly we can achieve that. When we look at the agent experience, we can start looking at the cases and how we can look at optimizing those cases, collaborate through things like teams, and enable our supervisors to have visibility of what people are working on. And then we have data processing and analytics, where we can start understanding how many tickets are coming through, are we hitting our KPIs, and if we need to expand that further by using additional products, looking at maybe using Power Apps to capture additional data, or using Power Automate to optimize those processes. Using the Dataverse platform along with different Dynamics products and the Power Platform, you are very, very quickly going to be able to optimize different levels of customer service. Great. So I hope you enjoyed that session. Something slightly different, but with the whiteboarding, hopefully you've seen how those different elements come together, how different users interact with that system, and why we start off with that business problem and technology comes afterwards. We've seen a few areas there where we can optimize different levels of customer service by using products in the Microsoft suite. but adding to that, making use of potentially existing products that you've already got within your environment. So if you would like to find out more, please reach out. These type of sessions we do with our clients on a day-to-day. So if you want to jump on a 30-minute phone call to talk through this and maybe map this out in your environment, please inquire, and I look forward to speaking to you shortly.